You should get it.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody to our Bylaws Committee meeting. It's 9:30 and I call the meeting to order. We are recording. I'm going to go to the agenda here and try to share this. But in the meantime, okay, people, I am supposed to be able to do this really, really easily now. And I was really, really careful to set everything up. But why don't we introduce ourselves and go through any conflicts while I try to find the one screen that I needed to get to. So I'm Nancy Vandell, Chair, and I have no conflicts that I know of.
Michael Beachley.
Angelo, no conflicts.
Michael Beachley, no conflicts.
Susan Schomburg, no conflicts.
Okay, thank you. And we have guest Roger Bookland here, and we'll have public comment at the end, Roger. And Tom couldn't be with us today, so I will be trying to cover his part of it.
Bill, you're still muted, Bill, and we need to know if you have any conflicts. Or not.
There we are. Bill, are you there? Okay, can you guys see a share here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so all these meetings are through the NCAC portal. So Roger, you should be able to see them too. If you go into the Bylaws Committee meeting, it has meeting documents. You should be able to see all of these. So Bill, are you there? Okay, I see an unmuting. Are you there? Well, Bill, do you want to try to get out and come back in again? Because I'm not seeing you or hearing you.
I think that was a yes.
I think so. I think he could hear us. So hopefully he'll be back shortly. But basically, I'll go through the agenda while he's getting back on. So we'll be starting with the approval of the minutes. Hopefully you all got a copy of that. And Roger, they're on the website under meeting documents. Then we'll have my brief report and then talk about the Bylaws Committee webpage. Then go into the bylaws review, pick up where we left off on membership voting and district boundaries, and then talk about other substantive amendments, including our timeline, where we'll talk about taking on different areas. Hi, Bill, we see you. Just need you to unmute and we're good.
Yeah,
thank you.
I don't know why I couldn't get in there before. Could you see me before?
No, we saw your name, that was it. So
I was in and I couldn't see anybody, but I could see your screen, and I left and came back. Here I am.
Perfect. So do you have any conflict of interest declarations, Bill?
I do not.
Okay, so your declaration is you have none. Great. I think we're good. So we were just going through the agenda, Bill. Can everybody see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm trying to improve on this sharing of screen. And then before we get to public comment, I should have had this on the agenda. I just want to review very quickly what we'll talk about for our report for the NCAC meeting a week from tomorrow. And then go into public comment and summarize the meeting and action items and then adjourn. I don't think we're going to have a terribly long meeting this time compared to last time. So thank you for your patience last time where we went the full 2 hours. Tom, as I've mentioned in emails to each of you, has done a lot of work since the meeting on the membership voting and district boundaries. So we'll be going through some of that. I've been working with Jeff and Tom on getting documents set up on the webpage where everybody can get to them in a way that everybody can see them. And I think we've got some improvements going on how I can send links where you get to the actual document instead of a whole page of documents. and yet people can go back and the public can, or the committee members can go back and look at any individual iteration or revision number of each of the documents. So I think we're extremely transparent, and we should be getting increasingly so as we get this going. But right now, all the documents are out there for you to get. If anyone has any problems with accessing them, please give me a call or let me know, and I can help you out. So
very helpful, Nancy.
Okay, good. You're finding it helpful? Good. Good.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have to thank Jeff Witzel for a lot of his help on this, as well as Tom for working with Jeff on setting things up. So on the Bylaws Committee webpage, we were going to be talking about the blog. And at the end, during the last meeting, Sarah Absher said that she would check with the County Council on whether our idea to have a committee blog would be workable. And what that idea was, since we weren't on video, was to have a blog through Google Docs where the committee could comment and anyone in the public could view the comments, and then they could use a comment or input form to get back to us, or just a simple email to us, to our Bylaws Committee email to comment. So we wouldn't be subject to random comments from out there, people who are not really associated with the NCAC. It could be something where the committee could still be doing a little more productive work during the time between our public meetings and still be public. So Sarah called me this morning. She's not going to be able to join us at this meeting like she was hoping to. She had an urgent situation come up, but she has a meeting with County Council today, and she's going to bring up the committee blog, among other things, to talk about whether that is going to be a legitimate way of if it meets the requirements of the Oregon public meeting law. So we're trying very hard to be transparent. So basically, we're not going to have more comment on that agenda item at this point. Sarah also, this kind of goes into the next one, following up on an action item out of the last meeting. I was able to get a list of physical addresses for the members who had signed up for the June voting meeting and sent those to Sarah. And she is working through the process of having her staff do the GIS mapping of the addresses so that we may be able to see what a natural boundary of our existing members would be. It wouldn't include everybody, but it would be a representative map that would come out. So I think until we get that information back, it's probably premature for us to try to make any kind of decision recommendations on Article 3 with the boundary situation. But we will go through Tom's updated slides on that. So
quick
there's
question, is she doing the people who voted at the meeting or the people who were voting members and could have voted at the meeting?
It was the people who signed up to attend the meeting. Whether they voted or not, we don't know, but they were people who had signed up to attend the meeting. And the reason that we picked that was that it was the only meeting where people had to put in what their NESCON addresses were, not their physical addresses or where they reside, but being property owners or business owners, or, you know, the people who are legitimately allowed to be members of the NCAC had to put in what their NESCON property was. And so, like in my case, we're just owners of lots. So we had lot numbers and that kind of thing. So some of them were lot numbers, some of them were physical addresses, but it was of the NESCON properties, not people's actual home addresses.
And when people just sign up to be members, they haven't done that in the past. We haven't required them to.
Correct. That's never apparently been a requirement in the past. And it's something I think, you know, everybody's looking at now, is to try to create a membership list that would allow, I mean, it's one of the things we're looking at in Article 3 is being able to have that kind of a membership list so that people sign up and show that they would be a legitimate member, depending on, you know, what we and then the NCAC overall decide what the correct requirement should be. So it'll be a little more structured. All of this, of course, is still way up for discussion, but it was nice last meeting when Sarah said it would be completely workable if she had a set of addresses. She has staff that could actually do a GIS map and could show maybe something that would give us some description of how we could define a voting area. So that's kind of my report at this point. I've asked for 15 minutes at the NCAC meeting to give an update. I don't know if we'll need that, but it would give time for comments or questions when we get the report. And you all, of course, are invited to attend that meeting. It's on Saturday at 10 o'clock, a week from Saturday at 10 o'clock. And I'd love to be able to introduce you. Michael, I assume you'll be the parliamentarian again.
Yes.
Michael did a fabulous job at the last NCAC meeting as parliamentarian, and thank you for taking that role on again, Michael.
Sure.
Okay, so on to the next. Are there any comments on the agenda? Any additions to the agenda? Okay, so I've basically covered the next agenda item pretty quickly because we're waiting on Sarah to talk with the county attorney, and we're hopeful. She was pretty optimistic it was going to be okay. And she and I are going to get together early next week virtually and talk about the results. So we should be able to have something that I can send out to each of you individually and before the NCAC meeting to talk about the block. It'll be pretty easy to set up once we have that permission. Tom has done an initial change to the public comment input form. He and I are kind of going back and forth because we actually didn't think about it till yesterday. So I think there's still some additional things we need to do. So I'm not going to present that today. We'll just defer that to the next meeting. If that is that okay with everybody? Okay. So next agenda item is a bylaws review regarding membership voting and district boundaries. So again, I'm going to modify things a little bit. Tom has, as I put in an email note to each of you, has actually gone through and set up presentations for each of these different substantive amendments as a boilerplate. He hasn't gone through and actually suggested amendments. He's just sent up a template, like he mentioned in the last meeting, so that it makes it easy for whoever ends up, which of you would like to take on different substantive areas, to have something that's a framework to be able to have your discussions under. And he suggested that we discuss Article 2 at this meeting before we get into the membership article, just to be able to understand what our mission is. And because there was some discussion at the last meeting about land use, and are we really here only for land use? And Article 2 of our bylaws really says, no, we do land use, and that's why we were set up, but there were other areas too. So I'm going to try to put up that document. See if I can do this a little faster this time. Well, let's see if I can go back. So you can still see everything, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes. We haven't done the minutes. We haven't done the minutes. Let me back up. Sorry. People, please feel free if you see me missing agenda items. So you've all had a chance to look at the minutes. Wyatt, thank you again so much. We put in more detail than usual because I forgot the video. So did anyone need to have the minutes read, or are you guys familiar with everything? Any comments, any clarifications, additions, corrections to the minutes?
Oh, thanks for the editing, Nancy.
Well, you're welcome. You made it easy, Wyatt. Okay, any other? We okay? Ready to vote on the minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, if there's no objections, then the minutes are approved as presented.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Very nice job, by the way. That's a comprehensive set of minutes, if I ever seen any.
Yeah,
Next time you're
normally.
going to be absent, Michael, please let me know so I can be absent as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why is agreed to take minutes until you came on board, Michael, and then you weren't able to. So he got he got stuck with the whole thing. And it was quite a meeting, I think, last time. Okay. So I will change those minutes to final and get those uploaded onto the website. Okay, so Article 2. So basically Article 2 is the purpose of the NCAC. And this is kind of a dual presentation here. It's one to show you a boilerplate of what Tom has set up for each of us to use as we go into these different articles. So each of them has the title at the beginning of what it is and a date. And then you guys can, if you take on one of these, you can change the name in there. These documents are all available as PowerPoint slides as well as the PDF version. So I'm just showing you the PDF, but there's an editable version on the website that you can each get to. And then each of them are going to be the same of the purpose of the slide deck, which is to present the possible changes, if there are any, to that particular article. And then they name the article, identify any points of contention or uncertainty within our committee, get consensus on text changes, and if possible, move modified text for insertion into draft bylaws document. So this is all a process, this purpose here. It's there are some steps in there that are not included because it's really just talking about the purpose of the slides. But of course, part of it is not just coming up with the proposals, but going out for public comment. We're going to be doing different workshops for anyone interested to actually be able to have a discussion, a group discussion with members on what they'd like to see or not see about these different changes. But that's kind of this slide number 2 here is going to be on all of them. And then we get into the meat of it. And Tom has existing and then a box for proposed changes with any changes highlighted in red. And some of those may be substantive. It may go over several pages. But he has, for this one, it's a pretty simple one. There's objective 1 and objective 2. So, or 2, excuse me. It's page 1 and page 2. So our existing objective is that the NCAC is a group of local citizens that acts as an advisory body to local, state, federal government agencies and citizens. The NCAC is dedicated to promoting communications between the citizens and government bodies on land use and other relevant issues. So again, we're starting with the bylaws that have the editorial changes made and reformatted into Robert's Rules of Order format that we got approval for at the October NCAC meeting to start with. So if you go to the bylaws, it's not necessarily going to have, the existing bylaws don't have this format, but this is the words from the existing bylaws. So Tom did put in a couple of suggested changes there for just putting in the word and taking out citizens. And then Article 2 goes into more detail here. So, in all activities, the NCAC shall provide for and encourage increased citizen participation. Activities shall be determined by the membership and include, but not limited to, make recommendations to applicable government bodies on land use, environmental impacts, public safety, and public health. So not just land use. And this is something that when I talked to Guy Siebert way early on, who was a member of the first bylaws committee and the first NCAC chair, he said this was a big deal to add these other areas in, and that the county did approve that the NCAC would have this mandate to be able to look at these other areas besides land use, even though we were set up for land use to begin with. Taking actions that suggest community plan and county code amendments, advocating for consideration of county services, conducting special community studies, and other matters deemed relevant by the membership, which is pretty open-ended. So I think it's good for us to keep all this in mind as we're going forward on all the different substantive areas that we discussed, that this is the current objective of the NCAC. And this objective was, or object in Robert's Rules vernacular, was taken also by other CACs around Tillamook County. So we're not alone, but they took it from Nescolin's CAC. So are there any questions on that? That's really it. There's nothing else on this slide currently until somebody takes this on. But
I don't have a question, Nancy, but I have a comment for future consideration. And I'm not sure if I can say this very artfully, but the scope of Article 2, insofar as the role of the committee is concerned, significantly expands what the original charter, if you will, was from both the state and the county, not only in areas of concern, but also geographically, because the idea that we won't be consulted by the federal government about matters even outside the original area of, let's say, of membership that we decide to adopt is likely, frankly, based on the requirements of the environmental impact laws. And so it does, I think, require some consideration as we look at membership about how comfortable we feel making comments about land use or other matters beyond our actual membership boundaries. And secondly, whether in fact we need to include those additional areas as part of our membership boundaries. I hope I've said that so it's understandable.
so
Can you go back to the previous slide? I think that's
yes,
maybe what he's talking about. That's where the federal government is.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Wyatt, are you saying that our membership boundaries should be a little more inclusive as opposed to exclusive because of these different considerations that might involve properties that are outside the Tillamook County official land use boundaries?
That's certainly a possibility. I'm not sure I'm advocating for that. I do like the expanded role of the committee to affect areas outside of our original boundaries because it affects all of us anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So where are you getting that expansion? Just because it says state and federal agencies?
Yes, that, not only that, but the geographical areas that we are likely to be consulted about are beyond what the original boundaries were as contemplated by Tillamook County.
But why do you assume that we'd be consulted about those other things?
Because typically environmental impact statements, i.e. timbering, for instance, there are all sorts of comments and solicitations of comments by areas adjacent to those areas that are being considered for environmental impact changes. And that's one very limited example.
So I think too, this is something that has been approved for years and years and years. This is not new here, but it is a change, as you mentioned, Wyatt. And I think it's one reason that Sarah has said we don't need to follow the Tillamook County boundaries. We can set our boundaries as we see appropriate for our membership. So I know, Roger, you'll have some things to say during public comment about this, and it's a particular interest to you. I think it's something that as we get into the membership area, it will be a key area. And I do think when we do come up with something as a committee, we will be taking that for workshops, and it will probably be the most intense discussion we have for the entire bylaws. It also, of course, overlaps into voting and all of that. So I think we'd actually last time gotten a pretty good definition of a member. It was really the boundaries that we had a lot more discussion about and need more work on. So
I think it seems to me that we're talking about two potentially separate issues, and one of them is membership. And the other one is the subjects of discussion and concern and potential debate and so on and so forth um, may include people who are not members. Because it may be regional, it may be statewide or whatever. And whatever we write down should not preclude us from having some official comment on something that happens outside of the physical boundaries of Nescoin. And I think, your comment about forestry and so on strikes me as one of those issues, for example. Water usage is another one. That's a big deal in the United States right now, and it's going to grow even more so. But they do involve people and areas and lands and issues outside of the Nescoin area. So I hope we don't preclude our being able to speak about that or giving some advisory comment on those.
I think that's exactly right, Michael. I think it's a great comment, and I think that is why the original bylaws people that came up with this wanted to be able to comment on things that were relevant to Nescoin, the Nescoin community in general, and not restricted to strictly land use issues. Yeah. And they have historically. I think I mentioned in our second meeting after talking with Guy and a few other people, historically over the years there have been a number of issues that the NCAC has gotten involved in, involving things other than land use. So, okay, so are there any questions about just the general format that Tom's come up with? Do you like the format? Is there a way that you'd like to change it as we go forward on other types of, on the other articles for substantive changes?
I like it.
I like it too. I think it gives us a simple form to work with.
Yeah, and maybe I missed it here, but I thought I remembered from another meeting there was a place for an explanation of why somebody was, suggesting a change. Would you just put that right in that
yes.
proposal?
Right. So I think we'll see that as we go into Article 3, and you'll see, I think that's probably where you saw it, Bill, is you don't just put the changes, but you put in why you feel like they should
in
be
that
changed.
Same box where it says changes.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And if it turned out you have more of an explanation, I think the format's it's easy enough to modify if you need more space and that kind of thing. Yeah, and then the actions going forward. You'll see more involved when we move to Article 3, but I wanted to have the discussion about what our object is, because it's a good reminder. So, okay, any other discussions on this Article 2 before we move on? Okay, and so somebody gets to take this on to see if there needs to be any actual modifications other than what Tom's put in here. Okay, so article, I think we're now, let me go back to the agenda. I like this, I can actually find everything. Okay, so now we're going back to membership voting and boundaries. And so this is basically something that Tom had done as a result of our last meeting to make some changes based on the discussions. So he simplified a few things. You've had a chance to see this sent out before, but so again, he's got the same purpose, right? And he's summarized the changes. I think we don't need to go on chat on that slide much more. So topics in the member section. Who could be a member? What's the voting power? And at this point, we have a slide on that, but it will likely be moved to Article 5, Section 5 on voting, as opposed to talking about voting in the member part of it. In the original bylaws, member and voting are all in the same area, and they're divided up in the Roberts Rules format. Where a qualifying property must be, and that's last time Tom had, I think, 6 or 7 different options for that. He simplified that since. But it was nice to see the different options and why. And then how do you establish membership once we have the criteria established? How do people sign up? And what are the rights of members when they are certified as members? and then meeting registration, how to sign up for a meeting.
Might
So,
we include appeal process?
okay, let me actually, I think it's be too hard for me to bring up the PowerPoint. I should have done that. Okay, can you make a note of that, Michael?
Sure. Yeah, and my concern is that if there is somebody who says, "Wait a minute, I should be a member," yeah, and so the bylaws should articulate what that appeal process is.
Yeah, that's a good
But
point.
would that be relevant to the whole bylaws or just that one section, are you saying?
Well, I was just referring to membership. That's all at this point. But a general appellate process we might want to consider. Yes, superordinate appellate process at some point.
Yeah, so I think, but at this point, what you're suggesting is having an appeal process through for if somebody gets denied membership, for
Yes,
example.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So
It's highly unlikely, really, in reality. But
right.
we
But
need
it's
to.
good to be prepared, right?
That's
So,
right. Need to account for it. Right.
okay. All right. So who can be a member? Membership is open to all. So currently,
Can you
membership.
increase the size? Can you?
I can do that. Thank you. Sorry.
There you go. Okay, thanks. That's good.
Yeah. So membership is open to. This is currently the writing to all persons who identify as a member of the Nescoin community, are at least 18 years old, and have at least one of the following qualifications within the NCAC area: resident. So one of our things that we came up with in the last meeting is we need to clarify what a resident is. Sarah is working on this action item, and she will get back to us on this action item. She was going to check to see if there's a specific definition for resident through Oregon statute. So we need to clarify. That was something that came up. I thought a really good comment last time was, what is a resident? Is it someone who could be a short-term rental person? Is it someone who, is there some minimum length of time that someone has to live somewhere? Is a renter okay? Do they need to be an owner? So we're checking on that. And at the same thing, real property owner. So this is something Wyatt and Tom came up with. Wyatt came up with definitions down in number 1 and number 2 as, and Tom kind of put them as more legal sub bullets. There's a word, footnotes. So an owner is defined as one or more natural persons which are owners of record real property within the NCAC boundaries, and any persons holding a beneficial interest in real property within the NCAC boundary as defined in this section. So I think we agreed last time that was a good definition of owner. Are there any other comments on that? Okay, and a beneficial interest is defined as a beneficiary or trustee of a trust, the shareholder of a corporation, partner in a partnership, member of an LLC, or a person holding a life estate. It shall not include homeowner associations or the holders or owners of liens or encumbrances, rights of way, or easements. So any questions about that?
Yeah, yes. It shall not include homeowners associations. That's unclear to me. The individuals of a homeowner association are okay, but the association itself is not. Is that the point?
That was the point, in order not to give them a double vote.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. All right. That's it.
So do we need to clarify that it would be like the...
No, that's clear.
Okay, you think it's clear? Okay.
But I don't understand then how the shareholders of a corporation, so if you have, I don't know, who ABC
An
Corporation
LLC
owns a store, and then there's 15 owners of that corporation, each of those are getting a vote. I think this gets to the fundamental thing of how broad we are, and do we want as many votes as possible, so that I own a property, I've got one vote, the property next door, same size, is owned by 15 people, they get 15 votes. I don't, uh, that still doesn't make sense to me. Didn't make sense to me 2 weeks ago. I understand it makes sense to everybody else, but I just thought I'd throw it out again.
To me, that and I remember the comments. It came from both of our guests 2 weeks ago, or two meetings ago. That basically the comment that they made was based on property rather than person. And you know, we've talked many times about being inclusive, that we're really talking about people who have an interest of one sort or another, whether it's beneficial or ownership or whatever, rather than a piece of property. Because if we dealt with property, then one could also make the argument that my property is only 20,000 square feet and his is 60,000 square feet. He should have three more votes than I do. But you know, that sort of thing. So I kind of steer away from property as being the definitional category rather than person.
I hear what you say, Bill. When we look at the NCA bylaws, they do clarify that you can just have so many representatives from a given property. And it's probably something worth discussing. I know when Sarah has talked with us in these meetings and outside of meetings, her strong feeling is that this is an advisory body to the Tillamook County, and their feeling is one person, one vote. You know, aside from property. I mean, I think Michael just said it better than I, but the person, every person gets one vote. If they own 5 pieces of property, they get one vote. And there may be 12 people owning one piece of property. Each person gets a vote. It's tied to the person. Is that something you feel strongly about, that we should really get in and reevaluate? Bill?
Yeah, well, I do personally, but you know, there's 7 people and 6 of them don't, so I don't want to waste any time.
Well, let's ask, what about the rest of you? How do you feel?
I think it's an important point to be discussed, because it's come up before, and I have no doubt that it is probably existing out there in the general membership. There are going to be people who are going to say, wait a minute, why is my single vote overridden by my next door neighbor who has 12? You see, that kind of thing. And I think that's going to come up, and we need to have an answer for that.
I agree. I think also that it is significant, and I think that we do need to discuss it.
Okay, so Bill, would you like to make a motion that we put a limit on how many, that we suggest a limit? We don't make decisions, but our recommendation to the NCAC would be that we have a limit of 2, 4, whatever people per property, a maximum that would have membership in the NCAC?
Well, I don't think I've thought it through to that point, and I don't think we'd be anywhere near ready to vote on such a motion.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not suggesting we vote yet. I'm just asking if you have a suggestion on what you would like to see.
No, right now I don't.
Yeah, there's a can of worms, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it may be.
I think I just more have a concept.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't we have an action item, Michael, for the minutes, where we go back and we think about this, and I'll send out the bylaws of the NCA. None of the other NCACs that I recall had any kind of such limits, and the NCA is a different kind of an organization, but it was interesting to me that they had that kind of limit. So, and we can take that on as an action item for our next meeting. Would there be any objections if I were to bring this up as a question in the NCAC meeting on a week from Saturday, or is it too premature?
I
It's
don't think
pretty.
it's premature at all.
Yeah, no, I think it's very appropriate. It's
Mhm. Mhm.
to me,
Okay.
it's sort of at the heart of this whole
Mhm.
membership issue.
I think
So,
it's appropriate, Bill. I think it's appropriate, yes. But
Mhm.
I think we need to have our chickens lined up first. So that we at least have, if not a decision on our own, an understanding of the ramifications of what a decision might have.
yeah, but wouldn't you
Okay.
like to hear if they've discussed this at length and come to this, article here? And that's
I can
everybody
go back
regards it
and
as a,
I can go back and talk to Guy and a couple of the others about that. Can you note that, please, too, Michael? I'm not taking notes.
That you're going to talk to
Um,
whom? Talk to whom?
Guy Siebert,
Okay,
just
okay.
historically to see
Yeah,
if they had thought about
yeah,
any kind of limits
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But I think what I'll do, if there are no objections, is in the meeting just mention that these are some of the things we're wrestling with right now
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
definition of member and definition of resident and boundary issues without necessarily getting comment, but to let them know that we are wrestling with this, if anyone, and invite them to send us their input if they are interested and give them the email
Yeah.
address.
Just
So
to
does that
answer your,
sound fair?
yeah, Bill, just to answer your question, yeah, I do want to hear what the comments are, absolutely, and to listen and to internalize and to understand not only what the comments are, but where they're coming from. But at the same time, personally, I feel better knowing myself what the logical consequences of either decision or any of those decisions might be, so that I have a framework to understand what people are going to say. I'm not really ready to answer it for myself, by the way. I'm kind of ambivalent at this point, but I do recognize that it's a critical issue, and we need to be prepared for whatever it is. And there's
I
going to be
think
a lot of feelings about it too. I can pick that up.
I think so. I mean, I think in most cases, let's say you have a LLC with 12 members. Um, in most cases, you're not going to have 12 members voting. But if you have a really contentious issue, you might. So I think it is an important thing to get clarified. I thank you, Bill, for
Yeah,
bringing it up.
yeah. I'm one
yeah,
of those. I'm one of those 12, by the way. Let me clarify. I may have mentioned this before, but there are 12 of us who own the same property. Legally, we each own a piece of that property individually and can sell it individually. So it's hard for me to tie it to the property itself because I have a deed, and that deed is identifies me and my family and my trust fund and so on and so forth as the legal title to 1/12 of that property. So, there are things to sort out what that is. Now, on the other side of that, the other 11 people don't give a rip. I mean, they're
Currently.
they just want to hear what's going on. That's all. And it's not going to be an issue unless something of great concern
Okay.
is raised, and then all of a sudden they're going to come out of the woodwork and say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I want voice." So
That's exactly right. That's
yeah,
exactly right. But that actually throws another curve on it, Michael. I didn't, if you've got 12 owners, each has a deed, each has a share, that even makes it more complicated to
that's
write
right.
something in that would, yeah, that would, yeah, that's really interesting. Oh,
Yeah, it
this
is.
is a can of
and
worms. Okay.
I offer
We're gonna
I
we're
offer
gonna
just
be
one
spending
thing
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah,
Please.
for you to think about as you go through this is that you could have members and voting members. So a property could have, as many people as wanted to be members of NCAC, but they would have to designate a voting member, and they would decide, how the vote,
That's
that
another
would
thought.
everybody can do it
Mhm.
however they want to, but at the end of the day, there's one vote cast to represent
Yeah,
that
and I
property.
think it'll be interesting to hear from Sarah next meeting about this. I think this is a really good discussion, and I want to brief Sarah on this too, because I know Tillamook County is going to weigh in on this issue. They're pretty firm, I think, on from what she said in the past, is that she really wants to err on the side of letting people have their votes. So,
yeah, and we have to remember that this is an advisory committee. Yeah,
we're not making decisions, right?
That's right.
Okay, so we will work on all this. Thank you for taking detailed notes on this part, Michael, and we will have a video this time, which is good.
Yep.
So I'm gonna move on if that's okay. Are there any other discussions, like business owner? I think is pretty clear. Susan, did you send Tom a text that describes a business owner?
I thought that he was going to take it from the posted Pacific City bylaws, which were sent out.
Yeah, I did.
That was what my memory. But initially, I was going to, until we talked about the.
Okay. I don't know if that's changed it here. We'll have to follow up on that.
If not, I can reach out to Tom. I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. And then Sarah was also going to check to see if the county has a definition. So, okay, our maps. Tom took a bunch of the maps that he had last time and put in some clarifying boundaries of the various types to try to help us understand a little bit more. And I think this is helpful. So the original NCAC definition is between the green lines up here. Can you see my cursor? I can't tell if you see.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the current NCAC boundary lines. He said, interestingly, there is no east-west or western boundary. So really people out in Outer Mongolia could have a vote where his property is actually not in the original NCAC boundary. So I suppose it wouldn't hurt to put in something saying boundaries the Pacific Ocean. So
wherever that may be.
Right, that's right. It can move, right? So and then the blue is the boundaries of the Neskowin zoning districts and the Tillamook County Land Use Ordinance. So the blue is what a number of people, including our guest today, have been advocating that we be consistent with. So we may not, any of us, agree that this should be the boundary of the zoning districts in the Tillamook County Land Ordinance. We'd like to see it expanded beyond these boundaries because so much of Neskowin is not in these boundaries. And we had quite a discussion at the last meeting from Sarah asking for her clarification on why this cannot be changed. And she went through quite a bit of detail on why all of the problems it would start. They'd have to look at pretty much every decision the county has made regarding Neskowin and this area if they change the boundaries, and the boundaries are just not going to be changed. So we have to live with that as the official boundaries, but she emphasizes that there's no reason why the NCAC can't include other areas because they could be affected. So that's one of our big questions is, do we need to stay within those boundaries and make the existing boundaries smaller, which would exclude a lot of existing members, or not? And then Tom folded in his Tillamook Tax boundaries that we kind of, I think, generally agreed on. He was recommending at the last meeting that we have all of the subsections of 5S11W, which is in the red area. And he actually didn't break it down in this. I think it's mainly Neskowin property or proper, and then 5S1W, 3 different subsections of that fall into this area. He thought that was kind of a logical representation. So it's not perfect, but it's an easy way to have the boundaries. So that's the red area. So those are 3 options. So by the next meeting, we should have the GIS mapping of existing members. And again, it's a representative member of existing members, not the entire member list. It's the best we can do to see how they fall in. But I would imagine we would have a lot of trouble if we wanted to exclude existing members. To me, that would be probably that just isn't going to go through. No one's going to want to exclude existing members that are falling outside of this area, I wouldn't think. But, there are people that are outside of the current boundary, apparently, which I hadn't realized, that are active. So do we need to make that change? And it needs to be written in a way that it makes sense. So this is kind of an area for future discussion. Tom's not here. Do you want to spend any time discussing this further philosophically, or should we defer this to the next meeting as well?
I would suggest
I think
deferral.
any discussion would be more useful with Sarah's input on the GIS map.
Okay, any objection to that?
Oh,
This is a nice set of mapping, though. I thought I would show that a week from Saturday, just at the NCAC meeting, just to show people what we're kind of some of the things we're looking at. Does that sound fair? And we might even have the GIS boundary by then, which I would send out to you. Any objections to my showing that? Okay.
nope, not at all.
And we're not going to be taking any motions or votes or anything at that. It's
No.
just information only on letting them know what we're working on, and letting them know they're welcome to comment. Okay, the next slide is how can people establish their membership? And I don't think that we had any changes last time. It was all what they already have in there, that they can supply the following information to the NCAC secretary. I think it just hasn't really been done in the past. So it's been in the bylaws, it just hasn't been done. And so at this point, the officers could just go ahead and do this. They could go ahead and set up something. They don't need our input for this. They could just do it. And I think it meets all of the requirements that we would like to see.
Well, what's that one that says qualifications is noted above? Does that mean whether you're a resident or business owner or whatever?
Yes.
Maybe instead of as noted above.
So once we have all that established, yeah.
But instead of as noted above, it might be more
that's
fair
the existing
to say,
word. And yes, we should clarify.
As described in article, whatever it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, right there.
Okay, can you note that, please?
Yes,
Michael?
Yeah, got it. It's a good point.
You're a good lawyer, Bill.
Yeah, that's why you're here.
Good point.
Good retired lawyer.
You're keeping us honest here. Okay, any other comments on establishing membership? I think maybe one thing I would like to suggest is that we actually, well, I guess it could be in policies and procedures, that we actually have some formal way that people do it and require them to do it, so that we have a membership list that's accurate. Okay, it doesn't need to be in the bylaws themselves.
Can we go back to that one?
Membership right?
Just a touch. And this may be personal, forgive me if it is, but we make qualifications such as phone numbers optional, but we don't do the same with email or other things, and that could be significant. I don't know, maybe I'm being picky here, but somehow we indicate that these issues 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6 pieces of data here are used to establish membership rather than requirements for membership. I guess maybe is that being picky?
Change can to shall. Change so person shall establish their membership.
May establish. How about may instead of can? May establish their membership by supplying the following.
Well, do we want it to be may, or do we want it to, this is a requirement for membership?
Yeah, does everybody in the world have an email? You see, that's the kind of thing. And that's again, I'm being picky, but I think we need to be picky sometimes. That's all. Or phones, but phone numbers.
So we could make the name and the local NESCO and address. as and the
Isn't the idea though
qualifications as requirements, and then have the others as optional.
but isn't the idea here that we want to all they're providing this information so we can get a hold of them, we can
Sure. Yeah.
send them information and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can maybe say email address or phone number, combine it
Yeah.
on one line.
And/or.
Mhm. Or have the two fields, but make say either. And some people are going to want to provide both. Okay, so more discussion. Can you note those too? I wish I brought up the PowerPoint. Next time I'm going to bring up PowerPoint. I'm going to type these in. We'll have the video too. Any more discussion on membership establishment? I think those are all good thoughts. Okay, membership rights of access. That basically members have access to everything. It'll be posted on the website. They can get copies of everything. They'll all be available to each member and posted on the website.
Nancy,
So,
I've got a question about that.
So what does that mean? They'll be available? I mean, that posting it on the website.
Wyatt has the floor, Bill.
Oh,
well, it kind of ties into Bill's comments because, looking at public records acts from various states, there are reasonable costs or costs that are incurred by the provider of documents that are passed on then to the requester. And I'm not sure whether we are limiting these to online or whether in fact they can be requested by paper document, in which case the association incurs costs. So I think we have to give some thought to that.
Okay, good point. We could just say electronically available. What do you guys think? Because I think everybody at this point should be able to get them electronically, whether they're on the website or via an email attachment or something like that, correct?
yes,
Without
that was
incurring
sort of
cost.
Yeah.
point I was making with the "and" in there. So yes, I would trim it down to that.
Okay, so Bill, that's what your comment was about the same thing?
Yes, the be available. This was written, years ago.
Right.
So at the time it made sense, but now be available and be on the website are sort of duplicative. So the only reason to have be available is if that means something else. And I don't think we want it to mean something else for just the reasons that why it was mentioned.
Okay, so would you like to say shall be available electronically, including being posted on the NCAC website?
Electronically or shall be available on the NCAC website.
Do you think that would be adequate for people? I think everybody's can get online, right, these days?
Yeah, and if they can't get online at home, they can go to the library.
Okay. Any objections to making that recommended change?
That's a good point.
So the wording would be a copy of the bylaws, meeting notes, agendas, and other relevant documents shall be available on the NCAC website.
Are meeting notes on the NCAC website?
They are. They
Okay.
already are. They're called minutes.
I would say she'll be available to each member. I'd leave that in, Nancy.
Okay.
Because we're talking about the
available to each member on the NCAC website. Okay.
Good. Got it.
Okay. Have you got that, Michael?
Yep.
Okay. Any objections to making that recommended change? Okay. So I'm just going to consider that an implied motion, and motion carries.
Okay.
Okay. Good job, Wyatt and Bill. Okay. Moving on. Are we okay to move on? Okay. Meeting registration, membership in the NCAA. This is current wording. It extends full rights of participation, including the right of voting in NCAC meetings. Voting membership must be confirmed at each meeting by either signing the attendance sheet if the NCAC meets at a physical location, or electronically registering if NCAC holds an electronic meeting. So registration for all meetings shall include both the name and local NESCON address of the registering member to allow confirmation of voter eligibility. So that is currently on there. We're not doing it right now. We probably need to get that started, but that's current bylaws. So possible changes no strong opinions. One would be to possibly move it to the meetings article instead of having it as the membership article. Last time we didn't really seem to think it matters that much, and that we could just go ahead and leave it under members as opposed to moving it to meetings. Any comments on that?
Yeah, what pops up to my head right away is that if we're going to be voting at the general meetings, then membership needs to already have been established for each person who's voting.
Right.
And that goes back to the earlier article on what establishes membership.
Right.
So this is an egg from the chicken.
Right. But right now there are current bylaws
right.
that say how it's established. It's just not being done.
Yes.
But yes, Michael, you're right. And so as we change how you establish membership, that would would actually affect the egg here.
The good thing about this is that these bylaws, including this particular piece right here, are not yet in action except from the original bylaws. So whatever meetings we have between now and the time we approve these changes will come under the original bylaws. So it's not a big issue, but it's something that we need to concern ourselves with for the future.
Right. And really, it's something we could talk to the officers about starting now. They really could be doing this now. They don't need to wait for a bylaws change. Although if we're going to be changing it next spring and we have differences in what we call a member, for maybe there's no point in, they could wait until we make those changes too.
But it's something to think about. For example, when we register electronically, how do we let them know that we are either a voting member or a guest? And which means, okay, they're going to have to determine that. That's going to create some time necessities on the part of the folks that are putting together the meeting. So each of us who have a membership, for example, and I've already been vetted as a member, might have a member's registration number or some such. I don't know, but to cut down the time that it's going to take to verify that each person who's actually online and voting is really a member.
Well, that begs the question about whether, in fact, there's a future here for a pre-registration vetting process that Michael kind of raised, and whether, in fact, a pre-qualification process would be part of standing rules that would be adopted by the board.
I think it's exactly right, and I think once someone has registered, they should be able to just stay as a member unless they sell a property or something like that. I wouldn't think they would have any interest anymore anyway at that point. So yeah, I think a pre-registration process would be a good idea. You can't have people debating if you have them sign up a few days before the meeting and then say, oh, well, you're not really a member. So,
or sign up a few minutes before the meeting, which is
that's right. Yeah, that's right. So have you noted that, Michael?
Yes, got it.
Thank you. All good comments. Anything else on meeting registration? We'll keep it here under meetings. Under my members. Okay, so actions going forward. I think we've noted a bunch of them, and we'll have in the minutes hopefully some of these, but is to define what a member is, and define a resident, define a business, etc., and define the boundary maps, and how they can establish, do some wordsmithing on this membership establishment area. We've already made a change on the rights to access. And then the meeting registration, I think we can come up with something that we can send out as a draft to you guys before the next meeting based on our comments. So, Michael, would you be able to get the minutes to me fairly quickly? And because I'll rely on that for working with Tom on some of these updates.
Yeah, I will. I'll commit to that by the middle of next week. Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, because I know there's a lot of changes here. So that's it for this section.
But this is good.
And the video should be up quickly too. Jeff will get that up pretty quickly. What, Michael?
This is good. All right, this is a good conversation.
Yeah, it's a I love you guys. It's a great group. So, any other comments on this particular section, or can we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, hearing nothing, we will get back from that and to that. Guess I go back in. Still not completely familiar with how I go back and forth. Oh, I think it's right there. There. No, that's Article 2. Okay, I was navigating just fine, people. Don't want that one.
It would help me immensely if you would encourage Jeff to put this video online as soon as possible.
I will. He'll do it today, I'm sure.
Okay, man.
I'll send him a note right after the meeting. Okay. Yeah, I was quite upset with myself last time that I hadn't videoed. Okay, so we're done with that. Sorry. Okay, let's look at the agenda again. Oops. Okay, so we're now on discussing other substantive amendments and the timeline. So I am actually going to go stop the share and go to our timeline where I have it in Excel. Hopefully I can find it here. Okay, can you guys see this spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've sent this out for make it bigger. So what I'm hoping is, don't feel like you need to take any of these on, but what I'd like to do is not do everything sequentially, that we could do some parallels processing by dividing up some of these different articles among you for a first draft attempt at looking at potential changes. So some of them have already been noted through the editorial changes as possible discussion items, and Tom's got all those noted in these templates that he's come up with. But I tried to go through and just figure out what looks complicated and what looks pretty straightforward, and assign a number to it, and maybe how many meetings it's going to take. And I rather optimistically said membership is 3 meetings. This is meeting number 3. So obviously I'm not completely accurate here. In fact, I think I'm going to change this to 5. So, but right now the name is extremely simple. So I think that could be done pretty quickly. Is there anyone who would like to take on looking at Article 1, the name of the organization? Okay, I can do it. I don't.
I'll be happy to do it.
What's that, Bill? You'll do it?
I'll do it. Yeah, like you say, it's pretty simple.
Okay. I'll work with you. Okay, so object. So we just went through object. Is there anyone who would like to take a look at object? And I think it's nice to work in pairs, but you don't have to. Or we could do it a different way, and you guys could just, if you'd rather just say, I'd like to handle this article, and we can sign up that way. We don't have to go and then fill in that way. That'd be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think previously, I looked at this several weeks ago, and I was thinking, oh, I would be happy to do officers, and I can't tell you why. And I was thinking it was that and another one were sort of paired, but I don't remember what the other one was. It might have been executive boards. But in any event, I'd happy to do the lead on officers.
Okay, any objections, or is there anybody else who would want it to be on officers? Okay, we can go back.
Because I'm doing minutes, and given the complexity of today's meeting with all of the things that we've raised, I'm actually going to be involved with all of these tangentially.
We all are, actually. We all are going to be involved with these tangential ways. It's really who wants to take the lead on coming up with an initial proposal?
Why don't you give me number 8 and number 9? How about that? Parliamentary authority and amending bylaws.
Okay. Any objection?
do
Anyone
10,
want to
Nancy.
join, Michael? What? Oh,
Yeah, that's it. Amending
No.
bylaws.
yeah. Okay. Anyone want to join Michael on those?
That's pretty simple, really.
They are. Okay.
I'm interested in meetings
Okay,
myself.
Wyatt was talking first. Let me. No, you're fine. Wyatt.
Article 10.
He went the big one.
I like that. Yeah. Popcorn.
Okay.
Popcorn.
All right, Wyatt, you're taking out a big one. All right, Susan.
I'm interested in number 5, the meetings.
Okay. Okay, anyone else interested in any
you
of
got
those?
that in timeline.
You have Susan's name in the long column.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep me honest, people. Appreciate it.
And I would
I'd like to
volunteer for
take
executive boards.
Bill, is that that's Wyatt? Okay,
Yep.
Wyatt, I'm taking that one too. You and I can work together. You're on 2 of them already. Can I put myself as lead on that one?
Absolutely.
That's a pet one for me. Be nice to work with you on it. Okay. We're not leaving much room for Tom, but he's got this big one here, membership. So, okay, subcommittees. I'd like to work on that one too. Is there anyone else interested in subcommittees?
Nominations, communications, and other committees.
I think there are a bunch that need to be set up in there, but
what's the timeline on that?
it's 3 meetings. It's substantial. I think there's a lot of work that has to be done. I mean, remember when we started, we weren't sure what our purpose was and what we could do and not do. And there's a lot of, it just hasn't, none of these committees have been written out very well in the bylaws. And it's establishing a communications committee. It's also really, they're all, what is that we're going to suggest they all be subcommittees and not committees. We've talked about that before. And then like there's the new committee that's been started for the community plan, so that would be fleshed out, that kind of thing. So how they operate.
So Nancy, to get to this version that we can edit, if one of us, like me as an example, can't figure out how to do that, are you the person to call to help walk through it and figure out where to get it and stuff?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Happy to help you with that. And I actually don't have this Excel version on the site, so I will put it up on the site so you guys can get to it. The nice thing about Google Docs is it will show any changes that are made and who made them and when they made them. So, and then I'll have the PDF on there as well. So it's just whenever we do a new version, we need to change that R number on there and keep all the previous versions. So there's a way when you save on a Google Doc where you save and change the rev number on it. So I'm learning this. I'm not that familiar with Google Docs, but it should be good. So it's good to create a PDF though every time so that, because they're easy for everybody to see. You don't need to have certain apps for that. Michael, could you note that I have a action item to put this Excel version on the website?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, anyone who has any issues with trying to find documents, I think I'm getting more familiar with it. And so you can contact me. I'd be happy to help. I'm actually in Corvallis this week. So what?
If you're putting this on the website, you might want to take off that parenthetical on the heading.
Yes, thank you. That's right. We ended up moving it. But I will take it off when we're done too. So That's true. I'll change that again. All right, so we don't have anyone for item 2. Anyone interested? Tom will probably take it if you don't. I think he's interested. But we can have someone working with Tom.
On the object, I thought we already did that.
No, we had some comments on it, but it wasn't.
Oh.
We're not done with it. So I don't think it'll take much time. I'll just take that because I think you're right, Bill. We did a lot of work with it. What?
I can do it, Nancy, if you want, because I think the first one's pretty easy.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll put Tom as a second because I know he was already working on it too. Okay. I'll also make these consistent with last names or not. Okay. Meetings is a big one. I'd be happy to work with Susan on that, but if someone else would like to do that, you can. Okay, I'll just do that.
Okay.
It's my new life here. Anyone want to work with me on subcommittees? I mean, we'll all have an opportunity to comment on all of these as we go through. This is just an initial thing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it. If after this goes out, if you would like to work on any of these others, like Wyatt could really probably use another person on other bylaw provisions. That could really get into a lot of interesting things, Wyatt. So good of you to take that on. Okay, does this look good to everybody?
Pretty comprehensive, yeah.
So I'll go through it with Tom and just see if he wants to fill anything out in with this too. But what I suggest is that we take these items and start working on it either alone or with your team member, and be prepared. I guess I didn't put a timeline. There it is. Timelines there we need to fill out to come up with a draft to present at meetings coming up. And, you know, I'm rather optimistically hoping we could present some of this by the February NCAC meeting. And we only have one more meeting in December, 2 in January, and that's pretty much it. We might have one more meeting in February before the NCAC meeting. But you know, if we want to be able to get bylaws approvals by April, we need to get through some of these. And you know, some of these number, you know, 1 difficulty ones we could do really fast. But I would like to suggest, I kind of filled in some of these simple ones, that we could do your parliamentary authority one on the December 15th meeting, Michael.
That's easy. That's easy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Amending the bylaws at a January meeting, is that okay?
Oh, easily, yeah, that's pretty pro forma also.
Okay. So officers, Bill, I can work with you on officers. When do you think we could, let's take the big ones first, because we're going to have time in each of these big ones to meet. Meetings kind of ties in pretty well with membership. So I think we kind of need to get some of the membership things nailed down, and meetings will kind of come out of that. What do you think, Susan?
Yeah, and we'll want it done before elections with the voting for next year, ideally.
Right. So shall we say starting point for January? That you and I meet and talk about this for sending out a draft for January. January, February, really.
I will act as an ancillary to that, if you like, particularly since you're going to be doing with motions and quorums and, you know, other parliamentary issues there.
Okay, why don't I take my name off and put your name on then?
Oh, no. Leave your name on. I'm just saying that you know, there's some crossover there.
There is.
And I'll be glad to join.
Okay, we have to be separate though. We can only have 2 people talking at a time.
Oh, that's right.
But we will be sending out our drafts.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But we will be sending out our drafts. So the entire committee can comment. And hopefully if we get that blog approved, then we can all be commenting do
There
the
you go.
blog.
Yeah,
That
okay.
would be really, really, really nice to
Yeah.
not have to wait for meetings. So, and allow the public to still be able to see what we're doing. Okay.
January?
Subcommittees. What?
Oh, executive boards, I thought we were on. Sorry.
Oh, I was going down to another number 3-1. So I'm
Okay.
just going to put myself down for January, February. And I can't type, so, yeah. All right. So then we have twos, officers. Bill, when can we get a draft up? Because I'll schedule these into meetings. Do you think we could do
yeah.
anything by the 2 weeks from now?
Well, I'd rather say January only because I'm still traveling and I'm not going to be back until shortly before the next meeting.
Okay. I'm going to be optimistic and we could say January and have it done. What do you think?
Yes.
We'll see. We'll see. It's all movable. And I'm going to put, I'm going to put December, January for executive boards. This is one where we need to work with the officers on this one because there is not currently an executive board. And I guess it's one that I really like executive boards. I think it allows, right now, the officers have to meet publicly and they can only meet right now every 2 months, unless it's a special meeting that they call. So if there's an executive board established, then they could be meeting monthly to set agendas, meet with committee chairs, and that kind of thing, where we're not having to do all these individual phone calls, and the public's invited, and they can get a lot of business done, and then have the NCAC meetings for general purpose presentations and voting on important issues. So I don't see that the executive board would necessarily have any power to vote on something and make a decision for the NCAC, but at least they could get some of that work done. So, but they may not want to. So I've done some initial feeling out of them and they're willing to think about it. So that's kind of that. But they need to be part of writing these part of the bylaws. So I think, are we set? Does this sound good?
Oh,
Thing about executive boards is that they're often given authority to act in the interim. And that's an issue to be discussed.
It is. And my guess is currently, at least, that would not be acceptable to the membership with the current level of trust. So
really? Yeah, is that that's interesting.
Yeah, that would be my guess. So I think it would have to be taken slowly, and as trust is built over time, maybe that could be added in at some point, but that would be my guess. So
that raises the issue of what does the executive board actually do then, other than administrative kinds of activities?
Right. Well, they set agendas, and they can make proposals in the NCAC meetings to do different things, but to form committees and that kind of thing. They can set what activities will be discussed and that kind of thing. So they could make that kind of decision in an executive board meeting. Whereas right now they're having to call among each other individually to try to do that and call the committee chairs individually. So, well,
could they fill vacancies on an interim basis? That could raise some concern too.
I don't think the trust would be there. So those are all the questions though that have to be tackled, because I agree with you, Michael. Normally in an organization, the executive board would have those kinds of authorities. So that will be something to be discussed. And I'm going to move us on because we need to have time for public comment. And I promised you we would be out on time. But those are all things to be discussed.
If you have a meeting with the board, with the officers, that'll be a formal meeting. It'll be online or somehow, right?
It will.
Okay. If that occurs, then if you invite me, I'll be glad to attend that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. At the moment, I'm just calling them individually and talking.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yes, when we actually come up with writing it, I think we'll have to do it in a public meeting.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So thank you. I will definitely make sure all of you are invited to that. Okay. So I'm going to stop that share. and go back to the agenda. I think we're now at public comment, but I don't know. So, here's the agenda. Okay. Public comment. Roger, you have hung in with us the entire time. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, if I'm the only member of the public that's present here, what does that say about my life? I must have the most boring life in history.
Well, with all of us being on the bylaws committee, we think that you're right on target.
Yeah,
And we want to be able to say, oh yeah, we had active public attendance and comment at every meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how active I am, but I guess I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been on vacation. I was sitting deer hunting in my stand with most of my neurons frozen in the Wisconsin air, but I thought about this a lot. I don't think there's any justification whatsoever to have a voting member of the NCAC who does not live within the established community boundary as it is right now. If you could change those community boundaries, that would be okay. But Sarah has made that obvious that you can't change them. I think this is vitally important because the major purpose is land use issues. And I don't care if someone lives right next to the border. I mean, we all live next to other borders, county borders, voting districts, but only if we have a residence established within a particular boundary are we able to vote. I would love to vote in Tillamook County. I'd love to vote back in Wisconsin where I own property as well, but my official address is in Multnomah County, and that's the only place I'm allowed to vote. I understand you have a very difficult position. Historically, there are members that have been voting, have been officers, and are currently officers, and members of the steering committee who do not live within the community boundary. On the other hand, the whole purpose of your committee is to rectify the problems that have occurred in the past with the bylaws. And again, I see no possible way that you can justify allowing anyone to vote who does not live within the community boundary or to serve as an officer or a committee member. Certainly, people could give advice. People that live next to Nescoin could participate in the CAC meetings and solicit advice just as I'm doing this morning, but they should not be allowed to vote. When it comes to who should be voting and how many votes you get, that I loved your discussion today. I was just thinking about my own situation. As I said, I have 6 little pieces of property. Does that give me 6 votes? I think I'm the only name on the title. So do I get to vote or does my wife get to vote? I am going to convert my land into a family trust. So then do I go from 1 vote to 12 votes of all members of my family? And after your discussion, I love Bill's comment. I think that because the major goal is land use issues, I do think that the vote should be based on property, and I like the idea of 1 vote per property, a designated voter for each property. That would even include a renter, someone who owns a property that's rented long-term. The owner could designate the renter as the voter or could be the voter himself. So I love the idea of 1 vote for property. And again, I think that putting the voting based on property ownership instead of just residence is really important as long as land use issues are the major goal of the CAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Roger.
So I just have a clarification question here. So at one point you said you think residing in Nescoin is the most important, and then at the end you said property ownership is the most important. So did I mishear you?
No, I think that you should have one vote per property. As I said, whether that's the resident of that property or the owner of that property, I love Bill's idea of one vote per property. That takes away all of the problems I listed with my own property. And also Michael said there are 12 owners of his property. He's going to have a family trust. That could be, you could get into multiple voters at that stage from one little property. So I think one vote per property is an excellent idea.
But you said something about that the voter had to, you said live in Nesquin. You didn't mean that would be their year-round residence.
No.
Yeah,
I think you.
I just wanted to be sure you weren't using that word very
And
narrowly.
membership and participation in the meetings and ideas about what should happen in the community, that's one thing. But voting is another thing. And voting doesn't occur all that often. We had votes with the short-term rental issue, but most of the meetings are community members participating in what their thoughts are for what should happen in the community. And I think that could be open to anyone, the general public, basically. But when it comes to voting on land use issues, I think that you have to have an established legal precedent for that. I listened to the first meeting of the steering committee, and they spent a lot of time making sure they were following all of the community meeting laws. And their major reason was they did not want any of their advice to be invalidated. I would say that if you have people voting on land use issues who do not live within the Nesco community boundary, you could invalidate that in about 2 seconds. And I'm not a lawyer, well, you are, but I do not think that advice could possibly be validated if someone is voting who doesn't even live in the district.
Even if they own property in the district where the property could be affected by these land use issues.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate your input, Roger. We're we're past time now, but thank you for your comments. We'll note them in the minutes. And thank you for your time on many of these meetings to come in. We're not going to comment back, but we're certainly listening to you and we hear you. So thank you.
It's better than I do with my wife.
Okay, thanks a lot. And you and I had a conversation privately too, so I very much do understand your position.
Thank you.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. So thank you. Appreciate it. So in summary, Michael, thank you for agreeing to get the minutes out by Wednesday, and that will help me with my meeting with Sarah, as well as getting other notes out. And thank you all for volunteering to being on, working on these different bylaws areas. I value all of your terrific work. Thank you for everything. Michael will note all the action items in the minutes for us, so I'm not going to separate here. I will see you all on the 15th of December for our next meeting. I'll send out the agenda by the end of next week. And how many of you may be attending the NCAC meeting where I can introduce you on Saturday, a week from Saturday? Michael, of course. Susan? Okay, Wyatt and Bill know? Okay, and I think Tom will be there. So thank you all for a great meeting, and meeting adjourned. I will turn off the recording.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you for everything. Bye-bye.
See you all in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.